Dinner with my girlfriend and her family.
I suppose that's good enough because it is about family.
That's
Just
true.
for some perspective, let's talk about what's happening in these countries that I mentioned.
Thanks, Desiree. I think it's important for us to remember that when we talk about the Central African Republic and also South Sudan, we talk about two countries that for many years have faced ongoing conflict, and therefore people have been in incredible need of medical care that's been very sparse and wholly inadequate in many instances. Considering that we've had ongoing violence in CAR since the 5th of December and in South Sudan since the 15th, we've seen several 100,000 people fleeing their homes in search of safety and sort of congregated in displacement camps where their living conditions are absolutely abject, and they've not had access to proper water, sanitation, and in many instances medical care.
But we're talking about displacement, but there's been reports of mass killings as well.
Mm-hmm. So what we have seen and what our staff are telling us is they've treated several hundred people who've been wounded, either gunshot wounds or machete wounds, as a result of this conflict. So yes, certainly there have been killings, but our staff have not witnessed, if you want to call them sort of mass graves or such.
At this time of Christmas, which is said to be a time of giving, tell us about the work of Doctors Without Borders or Medecins Sans Frontières in these areas.
So in both Central African Republic and South Sudan, we've been there for several years. In South Sudan since 1982, and in Central African Republic since 1997. And in both these two countries, we run medical projects, so hospitals, clinics, and also outreach activities. Especially when there's instances of conflict, you find that many people will just flee into the bush, where they're incredibly vulnerable. If we talk about CAR, for instance, it's a country of 4.5 million people, and at least once a year, the entire population will at least have one incidence of malaria. So especially children under 5 are very vulnerable to malaria and also very vulnerable to developing acute and severe malnutrition. And so these are the kind of conditions that we're dealing with now and that we're trying to sort of also assist.
So definitely multiple threats there. What can the viewers of Morning Live do to help out?
Viewers can visit our website. It's www.msf.org.za, and they can click on donate, or if you want to take action immediately, you can send an SMS to 42110 with the words join, J-O-I-N, and then that's since you can immediately donate 30
I do
rand.
that regularly, and it really is a small amount, but it makes such a big difference.
It does. I think we also need to recognize that South Africans have an incredible sense of solidarity with African brothers and sisters. And so over the years we've seen this, and this is another way in which we can help people in Central African Republic and also in South Sudan. I think it's also necessary for us to say that when we're faced with emergencies like this, we also often recruit South African medical personnel to work with us for a while in these countries. So today we've got about 8 staff, South African and Southern African staff, that are working in South Sudan. And we've also had a colleague just return from Central African Republic, where he's been working for several months. So if people want to join MSF as a field worker, they can also visit our website, msf.org.za, and click on Work With Us.
What has been the tradition, the response from South Africans in terms of giving out help to Medecins Sans Frontières? Is there a restriction to medical staff, or can people give support services as well?
So what we really need is qualified medical staff, so nurses, doctors, anaesthetists, but also logisticians and administrators to work with us in these projects. And that allows us to provide medical care to people in crisis. So beyond the actual work that we do in the field, we do appreciate financial contributions as well, because it allows us to buy supplies in the countries where we work.
Just give us those details again.
All right, so if you want to support us immediately, you can send an SMS, the word JOIN, J-O-I-N, to 42110, or you can visit the website. It's www.msf.org.za.
And beyond just contributing, what can people do as individuals sitting at home?
I think it's important for us to be aware of what's happening on our continent, and to at least be aware that we might be in a very privileged position, but that we can also make a difference closer to home. So in this instance, what we're asking people to do is to be aware of what is happening in those two countries, and also to show their solidarity by supporting aid organizations such as ourselves and also others, but also to spread the word around it. But we're definitely also encouraging people to look closer to home, to try and see what the needs are in their own communities so they can feel connected to people and really allow themselves to give of their time, but also their means to help people less fortunate.
This campaign to encourage people to contribute towards Medicine Sans Frontières, it's a long-running campaign. What difference has it made? You have that beautiful advert that you play on television about a hospital that's just about to go off, a blackout, and because of that contribution that's made online, it makes the difference, and it stays with the lights on, they're able to complete the surgery. What sort of difference does it make?
Well, in the sense that in times of emergency, it's really important to scale up your activities really quickly. We're fortunate enough to have several 100,000 people around the world, and also here in South Africa, around about 20,000 South Africans that are giving on a monthly basis a small amount. And this allows us to have emergency interventions when they're called for and expand them very rapidly. So we're not waiting to sign on for grants or any support from a state or a foundation or such. The funds are immediately available, and our doctors and our nurses can act immediately. And so this is really important because it allows us two things. Like I mentioned, the rapid reaction, but also the ability to scale up quite quickly. But it's also, it allows us complete independence, so that when people come to us for medical care, they know that it's solely based on their need and not on any affiliation, political or religious or anything like that.
And just back to Sudan and the Central African Republic, what are the latest indications? You were saying you're writing a paper about what's happening now. Are there any signs of a turnaround, positive one?
Well, I think with both those countries, they have a long-standing history of conflict and instability. For South Sudan, I think as an organization, we're incredibly concerned about the level of violence that's occurring right now. But we also feel that it's necessary that medical structures, so hospitals and clinics, should be respected by the belligerents, so people involved in the actual conflict, that they should not target these facilities because they're there to provide medical care rather than being legitimate targets in conflict.
Borrie la Grange is from Doctors Without Borders and talking about a different take on Christmas, especially since it's the time of giving. Thank you so much for making the time to come through to talk to us.